The large meeting room was full of worried aliens. They came from 17 different planets, and they all looked very different from each other. Some were tall, some were short. Some had fur, others had scales. But today they all shared the same feeling. They were scared. Commander Zixtar stood at the front of the room. He was a Valorian, which meant he looked like a giant insect with 4 eyes. He was not happy. In fact, he was angry and confused. "We have a big problem," he said. His words came out as clicks and whistles, but a small device changed them into words everyone could understand. "A new species has appeared. They call themselves humans. They have ships that can travel faster than light. But we never knew about them before." The room exploded with noise. Everyone started talking at once. This was impossible. The Galactic Council watched all young planets. They helped new species when they were ready to join the galaxy. But these humans had somehow built spaceships without anyone noticing. Ambassador Krell stood up. She was a Thaxian, and her body was made of living crystal. Light bounced off her in pretty colors. "How did this happen?" she asked. "We have cameras and sensors watching every planet." "How did they hide from us?" "They did not hide," Zixtar answered. "They just moved very fast, too fast. These humans were fighting a huge war on their planet. While they were fighting each other, they also invented new science and built new machines. They went from basic planes to spaceships in less than 100 years. Nobody could believe this." High Prelate Thune stood up from his seat. He was old and wise, and his people were known for their great knowledge. "This makes no sense," he said. "When species fight wars, they stop making progress. They use all their energy on the war. They do not build spaceships. This is a basic rule. It always happens this way." "I thought so too," Zixtar said. "But these humans are different. They fight and build at the same time. 3 days ago, their first ship entered the Proxima star system. We caught it and surrounded it with our ships. The human ship is small and old. It looks like it might fall apart. But it got here." "What did the humans say?" asked Ambassador Krell. "That is the strange part," Zixtar replied. "When we told them they were surrounded by 17 military ships, when we told them their ship was too weak and they should not be here, they just smiled. The captain said 3 words, 'We've got this.'" The aliens in the room looked at each other with confusion. "What does that mean?" several of them asked. "Our language experts think it means the humans are confident," Zixtar explained. "Even when things look bad, even when they might fail, they say these words. 'We've got this.' They believe they can handle anything." Far away from the meeting, on the human ship called Perseverance, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair. He looked at the screens showing all the alien ships around them. His ship was tiny compared to those giants, but Jake was smiling. He had 50 crew members with him. They had left Earth 6 months ago. Everyone knew this trip was dangerous. They might never see their home again. But they wanted to explore. They wanted to find out if humans were alone in the universe. "Lieutenant Chen, how are we doing?" Jake asked. Elena Chen looked up from her controls. She was the ship's navigator, which meant she was responsible for flying the ship. "Our engines are working at 60% power, sir. The ship's hull is holding together, and we have exactly 17 alien ships in a circle around us." "Are they going to attack us?" asked Dr. Lisa Martinez. She was the ship's scientist. "I do not think so," Elena said. "But they are scanning us. They are studying everything about our ship. I think they are trying to figure us out." Jake stood up and fixed his uniform. It was not fancy. Nothing on the ship was fancy. Everything was built to work, not to look pretty. "Well, we came out here to meet aliens. Looks like we found them. Open a communication channel." The main screen flickered and then showed Commander Zixtar. The alien looked like a huge bug with 4 eyes. A small speaker changed his clicks and whistles into English words. "I am Commander Zixtar of the Galactic Council," the alien said. His voice was not friendly. "You have entered protected space without permission. Your ship is weak. Your technology is primitive. You should not be here." "You cannot be here," Jake smiled. The alien was trying to scare him. But Jake had been a pilot for 20 years. He had flown through storms and accidents. He did not scare easily. "Hello, Commander. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Agency. We come in peace. We are explorers. Yes, our ship is not perfect, but she got us here. That is what matters." All 4 of the aliens' eyes blinked at the same time. "Your ship should have broken apart. The journey from your planet to here is too long. Your engines are too weak. How are you alive?" "We fixed problems as they came up," Jake explained. "When something broke, we repaired it. When we needed more power, we found ways to make more. We adapted. That is what humans do. This is not normal, Zixtar said. Maybe not for you, Jake replied, his smile getting bigger. But for us, this is just another day. We've got this. You have what? The alien commander looked very confused. All his eyes were blinking in different patterns. It means we can handle the situation, Jake said. It means we are ready for whatever happens next. It means we are not worried. Behind Jake, his crew was listening to everything. Elena, Lisa, Carlos the engineer, and all the others. They were nervous, yes. But they also felt pride. They had made history. They were the first humans to meet aliens, and they did it in a ship held together with repairs and hope. The council will decide what to do with you, Zixtar said. Stay where you are. Do not move. We will call you again soon. The screen went black. Jake turned to his crew. Well, that went pretty well, I think. Carlos laughed. Pretty well? Captain, we are surrounded by 17 alien warships, and they think we should not exist. True, Jake agreed. But we are talking to them. That is progress. Besides, have we ever let a little problem stop us before? The crew looked at each other and smiled. They had worked together for months preparing for this mission. They had faced broken equipment, limited supplies, and the fear of the unknown. But they never gave up. That was not the human way, so what do we do now? Elena asked. We wait, Jake said, and we stay ready. If they want to talk, we talk. If they want to test us, we will show them what humans can do. Either way, we will handle it. Because we've got this? Lisa asked with a smile. Exactly, Jake said. We've got this. Back in the council chamber, the aliens were having a heated discussion. They could not agree on what to do about the humans. Some wanted to send them back home. Others wanted to study them. A few even wanted to help them. They are too dangerous, one alien said. If they can build ships this quickly, what will they build next? They are too primitive, another argued. They will cause problems in the galaxy. We should send them home and watch them for another 1,000 years. But Ambassador Krell had a different idea. What if we test them? She suggested. We have a task that no one has been able to complete. If the humans can do it, then maybe they deserve to be here. If they fail, they will see that they are not ready. Commander Zixtar thought about this. What task do you suggest? Krell's crystal body glowed brighter. The old station in the Charis Nebula. Many have tried to get the data from it. All have failed. Let us see if these confident humans can succeed where we could not. The council members looked at each other. The Charis Nebula mission was known as the impossible task. The radiation there was deadly. The station was falling apart. Nobody had been able to get close enough to retrieve the valuable information stored inside. They will fail, Zixtar said, but perhaps that is the lesson they need to learn. Then it is decided, said High Prelate Thune. We will give them the task, and we will see if their confidence is justified or just foolishness. On the Perseverance, Jake and his crew waited. They did not know what the aliens were planning. But they were ready. They had come too far to turn back now. Whatever challenge came next, they would face it together, because that was what humans did. They faced the impossible and found a way through it, and they always believed, no matter how bad things looked, that they had it under control. They've got this. The next day, Commander Zixtar appeared on the Perseverance's main screen again. This time, Ambassador Krell was with him. Her crystal body sparkled with many colors under the lights. Captain Morrison, Zixtar began. The Galactic Council has made a decision. You want to join our civilization? We will allow you to try, but first you must prove that you are capable. Jake stood in front of the screen with his crew behind him. What do we need to do? Ambassador Krell spoke. Her voice was soft but serious. There is an old space station in the Charis Nebula. It has been abandoned for 300 years. Inside the station, there is important data from an ancient empire. Many species have tried to get this data. All of them have failed. Why did they fail? Elena asked from her position at the navigation controls. The nebula is full of deadly radiation, Zixtar explained. The electromagnetic fields are so strong they destroy navigation systems. The station itself is falling apart and spinning out of control. It is impossible to reach. But you want us to try anyway? Jake asked. Yes, Krell answered. If you can retrieve the data, the Council will seriously consider your membership. If you cannot, well, at least you will understand why you are not ready. Dr. Lisa Martinez was reading information about the nebula on her computer. Her face showed concern. Captain, these radiation levels would damage our systems in less than 20 minutes, and we cannot navigate through that electromagnetic interference with our current equipment. Carlos Rodriguez, the ship's chief engineer, looked at the data too. He whistled quietly. And the station is spinning like a top. We would need to match its rotation perfectly. With all those other problems, this is basically impossible. The alien leaders watched the humans discuss the problem. They expected fear. They expected the humans to realize they were not ready and asked to go home. But that is not what happened. Jake turned back to the screen. When do we start? Zixtar's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. You are accepting this task? You understand it is impossible? You said it is impossible, Jake replied with a smile. We have not tried yet. We will find a way. After the transmission ended, Jake gathered his senior crew for a meeting. Elena, Lisa, Carlos, and a few others sat around the small conference table. They all looked worried, but none of them looked like they wanted to give up. Okay, let us be honest, Jake said. This sounds really hard. Maybe harder than anything we have done before, but we did not come all this way just to turn back. So, ideas. How do we solve these problems? Lisa spoke first. The radiation is the biggest immediate threat. But I have an idea. What if we modify our shield generators? If we create a rotating harmonic pattern, we might be able to dissipate some of the radiation. It is not in any manual, but it might work. Can you do that? Jake asked. I think so, Lisa replied. It will take me about 6 hours to reprogram the shields. But it should work. Probably. Elena looked at the nebula data on her tablet. For navigation, I have a crazy idea. What if we do not fight the electromagnetic interference? What if we use it to guide us instead? Like surfing on ocean waves instead of swimming against them. That sounds risky, someone said. Everything about this mission is risky, Elena replied. But I think I can find a pattern in the interference. If there is a pattern, I can use it. Carlos was drawing sketches on a piece of paper. For docking with a spinning station, I have been thinking about something for a while. What if we use magnetic grappling? We cannot dock the normal way, so we create our own connection using powerful magnets. Do we have equipment for that? Jake asked. Not exactly, Carlos admitted. But we have magnetic tools for mining operations. I can modify them. It will not be pretty, but it should work. Jake looked around at his crew. They were not using advanced alien technology. They were using human creativity and determination. They were taking equipment meant for one purpose and using it for something completely different. This was exactly how humans solved problems. All right, Jake decided. Lisa, start working on the shield modifications. Elena, study that interference and find your pattern. Carlos, build your magnetic grappler. Everyone else, prepare the ship. We leave for the Charis Nebula in 12 hours. Are you sure about this, Captain? Someone asked. Jake smiled. Am I sure we can do it? No, am I sure we should try? Absolutely. We've got this. For the next 12 hours, the Perseverance was busy with activity. Lisa worked in the science lab, changing the programming of the shield generators. She tested and retested her calculations. Elena studied wave patterns in the electromagnetic data until her eyes hurt. Carlos was in the engineering bay, taking apart mining equipment and rebuilding it into something new. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council watched through remote sensors. Several council members had made bets about how long the humans would last. Most thought the human ship would turn back before even entering the nebula. A few thought they might enter but would retreat quickly when the radiation started damaging their systems. They are actually going to try, Prelate Thune observed. I must admit I am surprised. I expected them to realize the task was impossible and decline politely. They are either very brave or very stupid, Zixtar commented. I suspect it is the latter. When the Perseverance finally approached the Charis Nebula, it looked like a giant purple and blue cloud in space. It was beautiful but deadly. Energy crackled through it like lightning in a storm. Beginning entry, Elena announced. Her hands were steady on the controls even though her heart was racing. Shield modifications are active. Here we go. The ship shook as it entered the nebula. Alarms started beeping. Computer screens flickered. The radiation was hitting them hard. Shield status. Jake called out. Holding, Lisa reported. She was watching her instruments closely. The harmonic dissipation is working. Radiation exposure is high but manageable. The shields are actually working better than I calculated. Navigation is challenging, Elena said. Her eyes were focused on her displays. The interference is strong. But I found the pattern. I see it now. It is like riding a river rapid. You do not fight the current. You move with it. The ship twisted and turned through the nebula, following paths that the navigation computer said did not exist. Elena was flying by instinct and by reading the patterns in the chaos. It was dangerous and beautiful at the same time. In the council chamber, silence had fallen. The aliens were watching their screens with growing disbelief. They should not be able to navigate through that. Someone whispered. They should not even be alive. Right now, another added. I see the station, Jake announced aboard the Perseverance. Carlos, are you ready? As ready as I will ever be, Carlos replied. Activating magnetic grappling system. This might get bumpy. The station was tumbling through space, spinning on multiple axes at once. It looked like a piece of junk, covered in damage from 300 years of neglect. Carlos activated his makeshift magnetic system. The magnets were strong, taken from mining drills designed to pull ore from asteroids. The Perseverance lurched violently as the magnetic field grabbed the station. Metal groaned. The ship's frame creaked under the stress. Warning lights flashed everywhere. But slowly, impossibly, the human ship began to match the station's rotation. Come on, Carlos muttered, adjusting the magnetic field strength. Just a little more. With a final shudder, the two vessels synchronized. The Perseverance was now spinning with the station, held in place by Carlos's improvised magnetic lock. We are locked, Carlos announced, relief clear in his voice. It is not pretty. It is not by the book. But it is working. Jake stood up from his command chair. Elena, Lisa, Carlos, suit up. We are going inside that station. In the council chambers, Ambassador Krell's crystal body had lost some of its brightness. In her species, this showed extreme surprise. This is impossible, she said quietly. They should not have even reached the station. Commander Zixtar said nothing. He just stared at the screen, watching the small human ship accomplish something that the galaxy's best engineers had said could not be done. For the first time in his long life, he felt something new. He felt doubt about his own certainty. Maybe these humans were not as primitive as he thought. Maybe confidence was not the same as foolishness. Maybe, just maybe, when humans said they've got this, they actually meant it. Jake, Elena, and Carlos stood in the airlock, checking their environmental suits one last time. These suits were designed to protect them from space, but nobody knew if they would be enough for what they were about to face. The old station was full of radiation, and who knew what other dangers. Remember, Lisa's voice came through their helmet speakers. You have 43 minutes before radiation exposure becomes critical. After that, your suits will not protect you anymore. Make every second count. 43 minutes, Carlos repeated. No pressure or anything. Jake looked at his two crew members. We've got this. Stay together, watch each other's backs, and if something looks too dangerous, we leave. The mission is important, but not more important than getting everyone home safely. The airlock opened and they floated into the ancient station. The first thing that hit them was how quiet it was. No sounds, no lights except for their helmet lamps. Just darkness and silence that had lasted for 300 years. The station's interior was a mess. Corridors had collapsed. Debris floated everywhere. Emergency lights flickered on and off, casting strange shadows on the walls. Everything was covered in dust and damage from centuries of being abandoned. The data core should be in the central hub, Elena said, looking at her handheld scanner. But the direct route is completely blocked. We need to find another way through. Carlos examined the walls and the collapsed sections. His engineering brain was already working on solutions. We could go through the maintenance shafts. They are narrow, but they should still be open. It will be tight, but we can fit. Let us do it, Jake decided. Back on the Perseverance, the rest of the crew watched through the cameras on the away team's suits. They also kept the transmission to the Galactic Council active. The aliens were watching everything with intense interest. They are using hand tools to cut through blocked passages, Prelate Thune observed. Why do they not use advanced cutting equipment? Because they do not have advanced equipment, Zixtar replied. His voice was strange now. He was starting to feel something like respect for these primitive creatures. They are using what they brought with them. Nothing more. Ambassador Krell watched silently. Her crystalline form was dimmer than usual, showing her deep concentration and surprise. Inside the station, the three humans crawled through the maintenance shafts. It was slow work. The shafts were small and filled with sharp edges and broken equipment. But they kept moving forward. 30 minutes remaining, Lisa's voice reminded them. Understood, Jake replied. We are making good progress. They finally emerged from the maintenance shafts into the central hub. It was a large round room with computer systems on all the walls. Or at least it used to have computer systems. Most of them were broken or dead. At the center of the room was the data core, a large cylinder that glowed faintly. There it is, Elena said. But we have another problem. The data core was surrounded by a security system. Even after 300 years, it was still active. Red lights blinked around it in warning patterns. The security system requires authorization, Elena reported, studying her scanner, and the power conduits are fried. We cannot power it up the normal way. Carlos floated over to examine the power systems. The system is designed to reject external power. It will not accept anything we try to plug in. It is an anti-theft feature. So we are stuck? Jake asked. Not necessarily, Carlos said slowly. What if we do not try to power the whole system? What if we bypass the security entirely and connect directly to the core itself? That would require rewriting the base protocols, Elena pointed out. And this system is 300 years more advanced than anything we have on Earth. Can you do it? Jake asked her directly. Elena looked at the ancient alien computer system. It was so different from human technology. But as she studied it, she started to see patterns. Programming was programming no matter who wrote it. Logic was logic.
I can try, she said.
I will need time, though. 20 minutes, Lisa's voice said from the ship. Then we better work fast, Jake said. What do you need? What happened next was something the Galactic Council would talk about for years. Elena opened panels on the data core that were supposed to be impossible to access. She connected cables that should not have worked together. She read alien code that she had never seen before and found ways to understand it. Carlos built a power transfer system using parts from their own suits. It was dangerous. If something went wrong, their suits would stop working and they would die. But they needed power for the data core, and this was the only way. Jake coordinated everything, keeping track of time and making sure everyone stayed safe. He also maintained constant communication with the ship. 15 minutes, Lisa warned. Her voice was tense. Radiation exposure is climbing. You need to hurry. Almost there, Elena muttered. Her gloved fingers moved across the improvised interface she had created. The architecture is completely different from human systems, but the fundamental logic is the same. Every computer, no matter who builds it, follows certain rules. I just need to find those rules. She worked in silence for another few minutes. Then suddenly she smiled. Got it, I found the pattern. Transferring power now. The data core hummed to life. After 300 years of silence, ancient systems woke up. Lights flickered on. The cylinder began to glow brighter. Connecting to download the data, Elena said. She plugged her storage device into the port Carlos had exposed. Starting transfer. Numbers scrolled across Elena's small screen. Gigabytes of data. Terabytes. Information that had been locked away for centuries was now flowing into their device. Historical records, scientific discoveries, cultural archives from an empire that had fallen long ago. 10 minutes, Lisa said. Please tell me you are almost done. Transfer is at 80%, Elena reported. Come on. The percentage climbed slowly. 90%. 95%. The three humans waited, barely breathing. 100%, Elena finally announced. Transfer complete. We have everything. Then let us get out of here, Jake said with relief. We've got the data. Time to go home. The journey back through the station was faster. They knew the way now. But it was still dangerous. The structure was unstable, and their time was running out. They crawled through the maintenance shafts, pulled themselves through damaged corridors, and finally reached the airlock where they had entered. 5 minutes until critical radiation exposure, Lisa said. You need to get back to the ship now. We are at the airlock, Jake replied. Cycling through now, they crossed back into the Perseverance with 3 minutes to spare. As soon as they were inside, Carlos deactivated the magnetic grappling system. The ship pulled away from the spinning station and began the journey back out of the nebula. Elena navigated them out using the same technique she had used to enter. She rode the electromagnetic waves like a surfer. The ship twisted and turned, following paths that made no sense to the computer but made perfect sense to her. Finally, the Perseverance burst free from the purple and blue clouds of the Caris Nebula. They were back in normal space, safe. The crew erupted in cheers. They had done it. They had accomplished something that the entire Galactic Council said was impossible. They had proven that humans could handle anything. Jake removed his helmet and smiled at his crew. Good work, everyone. I knew we could do it. You were never worried? Elena asked. Oh, I was terrified, Jake admitted with a laugh. But being scared never stopped us before. And it will not stop us now. In the council chambers, complete silence had fallen. The assembled aliens stared at their screens in shock. They had just watched humans succeed at a mission that their own best teams had failed at repeatedly. And the humans had done it with primitive equipment and creative thinking. Ambassador Krell finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. How? How did they succeed where we failed? Prelate Thune shook his head slowly. They did not follow our methods. They did not use our technology. They simply looked at the problem and found their own solution. Commander Zixtar stood up from his seat. For the first time in the entire encounter, his voice held no hostility. Instead, it held wonder. They succeeded because they did not know it was impossible. We have tried so many times that we convinced ourselves it could not be done. But they had no such conviction. They just believed they could find a way. And they did, Krell added softly. They found a way. The council sat in contemplative silence for several minutes. They were all thinking the same thing. These humans were not just lucky. They were not just stubborn. They had something that the galaxy had lost over thousands of years of playing it safe. They had the ability to look at impossible problems and still believe they could solve them. We need to meet with them properly, Prelate Thune said finally. Not as judges testing primitives, but as equals meeting equals. They have earned that, agreed, Zixtar said. The other council members nodded their various forms of agreement. Aboard the Perseverance, Jake received the message that the council wanted to speak with them again. This time, the tone was completely different. There was no hostility, no condescension, just respect and curiosity. They want to understand how we think, Elena said, reading the message. They want to learn from us, Carlos laughed. They want to learn from us? The Galactic Council met again, but this time the mood was completely different. There was no anger or fear. Instead, there was confusion and curiosity. The aliens had spent centuries believing they understood how the universe worked. Now a species they considered primitive had challenged everything they thought they knew. Prelate Thune spoke first. His voice was thoughtful and calm. We must be honest with ourselves. We have witnessed something we did not think was possible. These humans have succeeded where our best and brightest failed. The question we must answer is simple: why? They were lucky, one council member suggested. Luck does not explain everything we saw, Commander Zixtar replied. Yes, they were fortunate, but they also made their own luck through clever thinking and hard work. Ambassador Krell stepped forward. Her crystal body glowed as she activated a holographic display. Watch this, she said. I have analyzed their entire mission. Look carefully at what they did. The hologram showed the Perseverance entering the nebula. Krell zoomed in on specific moments. Here, when Dr. Martinez modified the shield generators. She did not follow any established procedure. She took equipment designed for one purpose and used it for something completely different. This is lateral thinking. She did not ask what the equipment was supposed to do. She asked what it could do. The display changed to show Elena navigating through the electromagnetic storms. Look at Lieutenant Chen. She did not fight against the interference. Every other species that tried this mission saw the electromagnetic fields as an obstacle to overcome. But she saw them as a tool to use. She studied the patterns for less than 20 seconds and then used those same patterns to guide the ship. She turned the problem into the solution. Finally, the hologram showed Carlos attaching the magnetic grappling system, and Engineer Rodriguez created an entirely new docking method. It was crude. It was not in any manual, but it worked because he did not limit himself to approved techniques. He simply thought about the problem and invented a solution. The council chamber was quiet as everyone absorbed this information. Krell continued. Do you see what I am showing you? The humans succeeded because they approached every problem fresh. They had no rules telling them what was impossible. They just saw challenges and looked for ways to overcome them. Are you suggesting their ignorance was an advantage? Prelate Thune asked. In a way, yes, Krell replied. We tried to retrieve that data for 300 years. Every time we failed, we documented why it was impossible. We created rules about what would not work. We convinced ourselves that certain approaches were doomed to fail. The humans did not have any of those rules. They just tried things and adapted when they did not work. It is more than that, Zixtar added. Watch their reactions when things went wrong. He showed a clip of the Perseverance shaking as it entered the nebula, alarms blaring. Most species would panic here, or they would retreat. But the humans just calmly reported the situation and adjusted their approach. They expected problems and were ready to deal with them. Meanwhile, aboard the Perseverance, Jake and his senior crew were preparing for their presentation to the council. They sat around their small conference table drinking coffee and reviewing what they wanted to say. They want to understand our secret, Lisa said, looking at the list of questions the council had sent. They keep asking how we knew what to do. Elena laughed. Should we tell them the truth? That we were making it up as we went? But that is the truth, Carlos pointed out. We saw problems. We thought about solutions. We tried what seemed like it might work. That is what humans have always done. Jake nodded slowly. Maybe that is exactly what we should tell them. We do not have special technology. We do not have secret training. We just have a culture of figuring things out as we go. That is how humanity has always survived. When the time came for the presentation, Jake stood before the Galactic Council. He was just one human, speaking to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. But he did not feel small. He felt proud of what his species had accomplished. "Thank you for listening to us," Jake began. "You asked how we succeeded where you failed. The answer is actually very simple, but it might not be what you expected. We are really good at improvising, not because we want to be, but because we have had to be." He pulled up images of Earth's history. This is Apollo 13. It was a mission to Earth's moon that went terribly wrong. An explosion damaged the spacecraft. The crew was going to die in space, but engineers on the ground and the astronauts in the ship worked together. They used duct tape, plastic bags, and whatever else they could find. They built a solution from spare parts, and the crew came home alive. Another image appeared. This is the International Space Station. It was built by nations that were enemies just a few decades before. Countries that had pointed nuclear weapons at each other learned to work together. They did it because they all wanted to reach space. They put aside their differences to achieve something greater. Throughout human history, Jake continued, we have faced challenges that seemed impossible. We have failed many times. We have been knocked down again and again, but every single time we got back up. We learned from our mistakes, and we tried again. That is who we are. The council members listened carefully. This was not what they expected to hear. They thought humans would talk about their technology or their training, but instead Jake was talking about attitude and persistence. Elena stepped forward to speak next. When I was reprogramming your data core, I did not have a manual to follow. I just looked for patterns. I made educated guesses. When something did not work, I tried something else. It is what we do. We adapt, Carlos added his thoughts. When we built the Perseverance, we used every trick we had learned from decades of space exploration. Some systems worked perfectly on the first try. Others we had to fix and adjust along the way. The ship is not perfect, but we did not let imperfections stop us from trying. We knew we would solve problems as they appeared. Prelat Thune leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. You are saying that human progress comes from accepting failure as part of the process? That you learn by doing, not by planning? Exactly, Jake confirmed. We plan as much as we can, but we know that no plan survives first contact with reality. So we plan to adapt. We expect things to go wrong, and when they do, we fix them and keep moving forward. This explains much, Zixtar said. We spend years planning missions. We simulate every possible scenario. We only proceed when we are certain of success. But by the time we are certain, the mission is no longer challenging. We have removed all the risk, and with it, all the opportunity to learn. Ambassador Krell's crystal body brightened with understanding. And when you say we've got this, you are not claiming certainty. You are expressing determination. It is a declaration of intent, not a guarantee of success. That is right, Jake said with a smile. When we say we've got this, we mean we are committed to finding a solution. We might not know how yet, but we believe we can figure it out. It is optimism backed by action. Lisa spoke up from her position.
Can I add something?
I think it is also about how we view failure. In human culture, failure is not the end. It is just information. When something does not work, we do not give up. We ask why it did not work and what we can learn from it. Every failure teaches us something useful. The council chamber was silent as they absorbed this philosophy. For thousands of years, they had built their civilization on avoiding failure. They celebrated species that never made mistakes. They valued caution and certainty above all else. But the humans were showing them something different. A species that embraced risk. That learned from failure. That saw impossible challenges not as reasons to quit, but as problems waiting to be solved. Prelat Thune stood up. I have been alive for many centuries. I have seen civilizations rise and fall, and I must admit something. We, the Great Galactic Council, have become comfortable. We maintain what we have. We preserve our knowledge, but we have stopped growing. We have stopped taking risks, and in doing so, we have stopped truly advancing. He looked at Jake and the human crew. You have reminded us of something we forgot. Progress requires courage. Discovery requires risk. And sometimes the best way forward is to try something new, even if you are not certain it will work. I propose something, Zixtar said suddenly. Instead of just admitting humans to the council, what if we learn from them? What if they teach us how they think? How they approach problems? We have superior technology, yes, but they have something we have lost. They have the spirit of exploration and innovation. Ambassador Krell nodded. I support this idea. We should not ask humans to become like us. We should try to remember what we once were by learning from them. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council would offer humanity provisional membership. But more than that, they would invite human engineers, scientists, and thinkers to work alongside alien experts, not to teach technology, but to teach methodology, to teach the human way of thinking. When Jake reported this back to Earth, the news was met with worldwide celebration. Humanity had not just made first contact. They had impressed the entire galaxy. They had shown that being young and inexperienced was not a weakness. It was a strength. 6 months after the historic meeting with the Galactic Council, everything had changed. The Perseverance had returned to Earth as a hero ship, but Jake Morrison and his crew did not get much rest. They were too busy helping to build bridges between humanity and the galaxy. Earth had exploded with excitement when the news came back. Humans were not alone. And not only that, the aliens wanted to learn from them. It was the opposite of what everyone had expected. People thought aliens would be superior teachers. Instead, humanity had become the teacher. Commander Zixtar had requested a private meeting with Jake. They met in a neutral station that orbited between Earth and the Proxima system. The insect-like alien looked different now. Less hostile. More thoughtful. I owe you an apology, Zixtar said through his translator. When we first met, I dismissed your species as primitive. I thought you were reckless and ignorant. I was wrong about many things. Jake smiled. You were not completely wrong. We are reckless sometimes, but we prefer to think of it as being bold. There is a difference. I want to explain something to you, Zixtar continued. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for thousands of years. We have prevented wars. We have shared knowledge. We have built a stable civilization. These are good things. But somewhere along the way, we stopped growing. We became so focused on maintaining what we had that we forgot how we built it in the first place. You forgot how to take risks, Jake said. Exactly, Zixtar agreed. Every species in the Council was once like you. They took chances. They failed and tried again. They pushed boundaries. But after joining the Council, after achieving stability, they became cautious. Innovation slowed. Discovery became rare. We preserved knowledge but stopped creating new knowledge. Jake understood. And now you want to learn how to be bold again. We want to remember what we lost, Zixtar said. Your species has reminded us that progress requires courage. That sometimes you must try things without knowing if they will work. You have shown us that the journey of discovery is more important than the comfort of certainty. The exchange program began shortly after. Human engineers, scientists, philosophers, and artists traveled to alien worlds. They were not there to teach aliens human technology. Earth's technology was still primitive by galactic standards. Instead, they were there to teach aliens how to think like humans, how to approach problems with fresh eyes, how to embrace failure as a learning opportunity. Elena Chen found herself working with a team of Valorian engineers on an energy distribution problem that had existed for decades. The Valorians had tried every approved solution. Nothing worked. They were ready to accept that the problem could not be solved. Why do you accept failure so easily? Elena asked them during a meeting. Because we have exhausted all possibilities, one Valorian engineer replied. You have exhausted all approved possibilities, Elena corrected. What about the unapproved ones? What if we question our basic assumptions? What if the problem is not with the energy distribution but with how we think about energy distribution? That simple question opened up entirely new approaches. Within 3 months, the team had solved a problem that had existed for years. They did it by throwing out the rulebook and starting fresh, by asking what if instead of accepting that is impossible. Carlos Rodriguez worked with Thaxian construction specialists. The crystalline beings were masters of building beautiful structures, but they followed ancient designs and methods. When Carlos suggested trying new architectural approaches, they were hesitant. Our methods have worked for millennia, they explained. Why change them? Because you can always do better, Carlos replied. Just because something works does not mean it is the best possible solution. On Earth, we rebuild and redesign constantly. Every generation improves on what came before. The Thaxians were skeptical. But Carlos convinced them to try one experimental building. They used new materials in new ways. They took risks. And the result was a structure that was not only more efficient, but also more beautiful than anything they had built in centuries. We had forgotten that innovation requires experimentation, one Thaxian architect admitted. We were so proud of our achievements that we stopped trying to achieve more. Lisa Martinez found herself teaching at a prestigious galactic university. Her students were brilliant young aliens from a dozen different species. They knew far more science than she did, but she taught them something their own professors could not. She taught them how to question everything. "Your textbooks say this is impossible," one student pointed out during a discussion. "Then maybe the textbooks are wrong," Lisa replied. "Just because something has never been done does not mean it cannot be done. The universe does not care about our textbooks. It only cares about what is actually possible. And the only way to find out what is possible is to try." That semester, her students made 3 breakthrough discoveries. Not because they were smarter than previous generations, but because they were willing to challenge established wisdom and try approaches that conventional thinking said would fail. The phrase "we've got this" began to spread throughout the galaxy. At first, aliens used it as a curiosity, a strange human expression. But gradually, they began to understand what it really meant. It was not just words. It was a philosophy. A way of approaching challenges with confidence and determination. A young Valorian engineer faced with a difficult problem would say to her team, "We've got this." A Thaxian architect designing a revolutionary building would tell his workers, "We've got this." Students tackling complex equations would encourage each other with those 3 words, "We've got this." It became more than a saying. It became a movement, a reminder that problems existed to be solved, not avoided. That challenges were opportunities, not obstacles. That the proper response to difficulty was not fear, but determination. 1 year after first contact, Commander Zixtar addressed the full Galactic Council. The chamber was packed. Every species wanted to hear what he would say about the human influence on their civilization. "1 year ago, I stood before you worried about the human problem," Zixtar began. "I saw them as a threat to our stability. Today I stand before you grateful for the human solution. They did not bring us advanced weapons. They did not bring us new technology. They brought us something far more valuable. They reminded us how to dare." He gestured to the screen showing examples of recent achievements across the galaxy. "In the past year, we have made more scientific breakthroughs than in the previous century. We have solved problems we had given up on. We have attempted projects we had deemed too risky. And we have succeeded more often than we have failed. All because humans taught us to embrace uncertainty and challenge our assumptions. We had become so focused on preserving what we built that we forgot how we built it," Zixtar continued. "Through trial and error, through risk and failure, through determination and courage. The humans call it having this. We once called it progress. Now we remember." On Earth, Jake Morrison watched the broadcast from his new office. He was no longer just a ship captain. He had been appointed as Director of Interstellar Relations. It was a position that did not exist before humans met the galaxy. Now it was one of the most important jobs on the planet. His door chimed. Elena entered, now wearing the uniform of a commander. She had been promoted and given command of Earth's 2nd interstellar vessel, the Endeavour. "Ready for your next mission?" Jake asked. "The Council wants us to explore the Andromedan Rift," Elena explained. "Apparently it is even more dangerous than the Charis Nebula. 3 expeditions have disappeared trying to map it. They want to see if humans can find a way through." Jake smiled. It was the same smile he had worn when facing 17 alien warships. The smile that said he was excited by the challenge, not frightened by it. "Sounds like exactly our kind of job." "Think we can do it?" Elena asked. "I think we will find a way," Jake replied. "We always do. That is what humans do, right? We face impossible odds and figure it out as we go." Elena grinned. "We've got this." "Exactly," Jake agreed. "We've got this." As Elena left to prepare her crew, Jake stood at his window looking out at the stars. So much had changed in just 1 year. Humanity had gone from being alone in the universe to being teachers to an entire galaxy. Not because humans were smarter or stronger, but because they had never forgotten how to try. Across the galaxy, millions of beings were learning the same lesson. That progress required more than knowledge. It required courage, the willingness to fail, the determination to keep trying even when success seemed impossible. In a research facility on a distant world, a young alien scientist struggled with an experiment that had failed 12 times. In the past, she would have given up. The approved method was not working, so clearly the experiment was impossible. But now she had learned to think differently. She looked at her failed experiments not as evidence of impossibility, but as valuable data. Each failure taught her something. Each mistake showed her what did not work, which helped her figure out what might work. When her supervisor suggested she abandon the project, she shook her head. "I am not giving up," she said firmly. "I will try again. I will find a way." And then she said the words that had become a mantra across the galaxy. "We've got this." On her 13th attempt, her experiment succeeded.